the follow-up to that was that she went and spent quite a bit of time on site, and my advice to you would be to just liaise now directly with Sue, because she's all over that.
Live streaming now, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, comfortable there, David. Was I correct about the contractor or incorrect?
No, I understand that you're correct, yeah.
Yeah.
It was referenced at a meeting that Annalisa and I've just been to earlier on this morning. And what's happening in Wellington?
I haven't seen the latest updates, but it looks like movement, doesn't it?
Yeah. I went past Cramner Square yesterday. I had my surgeon sign off, so I had to go into town. That tent city in Cramner Square is getting bigger and bigger. Annalisa, what time do we know the insurance guys are coming? Or do we know?
I don't think we do know, do we?
Craig, you're in the office. Is Douglas anywhere near you?
No, he's at he's at SCC at a meeting there, so
Okay.
he'll be in for the public excluded part.
Thank you. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. An apology from Sam Annalisa this morning. He's doing National Council, so he's going to join Audit and Risk. He should be back with us for the public excluded part of the meeting, or at least that's what he's aiming to do from 11 o'clock onwards. So the only one that we're missing and I haven't heard from is Shane.
Now.
Ah, here he is.
Good morning. Oh no, I'm not there. Oh yes, I am. Morning, everybody. Apologies. It's hard to be late for a meeting in your own home, but I was just on another one for the community funding. So good morning.
Rona.
David, I'm not. Jenny won't be making the presentation this morning. She was taken to hospital first thing. That has caused a bit of an issue.
Thank you.
Can you please confirm that we're live on YouTube now, please? Yeah, everything's fine. We're all live now.
Right. Okay. Morena, welcome. Start with our karakia. Whakataka te ho ke te uru, whakataka te ho ke te tonga, kia ma kina ke uta, kia ma tara ke tai, e he ake ane te atakora, he ti, he huka, he hohu, te he Māori ora. Now I've also got our oath. Does someone want to read through the councillor's oath? We haven't done this in Audit and Risk before, but I welcome it if you think it's appropriate for Audit and Risk, or I know you do it in full council, don't you?
Morning, Annalisa. Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up, and I think it is appropriate.
Thank you, Shane.
It's a significant committee. Let us affirm today that we as councillors will work together to serve the citizens of the Selwyn District, to always use our gifts of understanding, courage, common sense, wisdom and integrity in all of our decisions, dealings and discussions, so that we may solve problems effectively. May we always recognise each other's values and opinions, be fair-minded and ready to listen to each other's point of view. In our dealings with each other, let us always be open to the truth of others and ready to seek agreement, slow to take offence and always prepared to forgive. May we always work to enhance the well-being of the Selwyn District and its communities. Kia ora.
We will.
We will.
Kia ora. Do we have any apologies?
Apology from Mayor Sam, Madam Chair.
Oh yes, just for the first part of the hui. So.
Correct.
Great. Other than that, can I have someone second the apology, please? Thank you, Murray. All those in favour? Great. Okay, I'll move on to extraordinary business, which I don't think we have.
No, there's been nothing advised, Madam Chair.
Yep. Which then takes us back to our minutes. It's pre-Christmas, post-Christmas, isn't it? It was kind of a bit of a blur when you kind of review minutes from the 22nd of December, but hopefully someone can confirm that they are a true and accurate record from the hui on the 22nd of December, which was the extraordinary meeting that we had. Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Bob. All those in favour? Thank you. Conflicts of interest?
No,
Any new...
conflicts noted, Madam Chair.
None noted. So just bear with me as I move through multiple screens. So that takes us to, did we have, no, we didn't have any other minutes, did we? It was just the 22nd.
Yeah, no, the next page, Madam Chair, is page 11, which is the action report, and possibly I can lead through that. The first one was to report back on cyber attack mitigation. That is on today's agenda. Privacy breaches is subject to report towards the end of the first quarter, and the PIR framework report, the first of those, is in fact today.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So we'll move on to the manager's report.
So Kelvin will lead item 2. I just want to talk about 1 and 3 briefly. The first one is the revised meeting schedule. Subcommittee members will recall the discussion and the proposal that came out of our workshop at the start of February, and that's reflected in the changed dates. And as you'll note, post-election, we've left those original dates that are in there because obviously there'll be different variation to membership post-election. The other comment I'd make, Madam Chair, there is a lot of paper in today's agenda associated with the OAG observations on the 21 to 31 long-term plans. Good reading, but my advice would be that we just acknowledge that and skip over it. It is a reflection on a historical document, and we're about 18 months away from getting into the next LTP, and I think that the landscape will have changed quite considerably. The other thing that you need to be aware is that the Canterbury finance managers and Canterbury chief executives have requested a meeting with the chief executives of both OAG and Audit New Zealand to discuss a number of concerns that we had through the audit process, everything from resourcing, audit plan, timing of work, and a lot of time and effort that seemed to be placed on prior years' reports that had already been signed off. So that is in train, and once that meeting is held, which hopefully will be towards the end of April, we will report outcomes back to the subcommittee. So that leaves Kelvin to talk to item number 2, which is the work plan. Kelvin.
Good morning, everyone. So that's the work plan, which was discussed at a member-only workshop earlier in February. Now, just to give anyone watching in on the meeting a bit of a highlights of what it is, that the work plan is set up in relation to the terms of reference of this committee. We've looked to, there's some discussion around frequency of meeting. This has been pulled back by 1 meeting this year with a view of in the next the next year to bring that back further. It inserted an additional workshop in. So just running down the work plan. It's broken down into sections, as I said, with the terms of reference around the governance. Through to health and safety, we will have our regular reports every month. Risk management, which will focus on our top risks and our risk appetite for the wider council. Internal control, probably the highlight here, is bringing forward a cybersecurity report every quarter, and we've got the first of those in PX today. The reason they are going to PX is just given they are sensitive, anyone using that information could then turn that information towards us, towards a cyber attack. Financial governance, we have the normal financial reports running through each month with a summary to go to the full council, quarterly treasury reports, which again today, and then through to the secular annual reporting and planning. Down on the investment governance, capital program report, including our PIRs, and we've got both of those today. And then just reviews of our CCOs, we monitor those, and the SCIs, which will come up for approval next month. Happy to take questions.
Shane.
Kia ora, thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm just lowering my hand first. Yes, thanks, Calvin. I appreciate your report. I think moving the meetings to a 2-monthly basis is quite good. However, I'm just a little bit concerned about flow of information. Obviously, if a project's allowed to run or can be seen to run in variation for over a period of 2 months, how can councillors and council be made aware of, I guess, variations or developments that are pertinent to our position sooner? Will they be made accessible on a monthly basis?
I think the key point there, Shane, is that if a project got into a serious state of a very serious red state, then you'd be informed as a council, and the council's meeting close to fortnightly or even weekly at times. So there's plenty of opportunities to raise that if there's a serious concern. But having said that, there's plenty of governance occurring within a management sense to mitigate that information and any issues.
Thank you. Secondly, what hasn't been covered in the document is the discussion and recommendation by the working committee to implement the 5-day directors course for incoming audit and risk members and the selection process that takes place. Currently, it's on a ward-by-ward basis, but it was discussed at the workshop that it would be or could be reviewed on more of a skills basis, so that we have the best candidates applying for or being a part of the audit and risk committee. And part of that discussion was the recommendation to put incoming members onto the 5-day directors course immediately if they so choose so.
From a work plan point of view, we wouldn't pick that up, but in terms of selection onto this committee, that would be a discussion to occur with the full council and an amendment to the terms of reference of this committee around selection.
And that takes place in November after the election, Shane.
Thank you.
Murray, I think you were next.
Yeah, it's actually a question that Nicole's got. She's having issues with her computer. So I'll just go through here. It's on work plan contract review. Where does contract review sit in your work plan, Kelvin? I can't be more equivocal about that because obviously it's her question, not mine.
I was just going to ask for a bit more context, but maybe I'll touch base with Nicole later today on that. But if it's around procurement, we discussed within that discussion of the workshop, it actually might have been, yes, it was at the workshop around the internal audit program, and where we're going to include something around procurement, and that would be part of that procure to pay life cycle and how we manage contractors within that. But I'll touch base with Nicole later to just a bit more detail.
I suspect it's also around, with our PIRs, what comes out of that, Kelvin, and I'm making that assumption. I'm hoping I'm correct in that.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I speak to it? It's just looking at contracts that we've got and, you know, how they are working as part of the review as opposed to procurement part of that, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, contractor performance would be if it's in a major project, it picked up through the PIR process that we'd be reviewing. But a contract in good practice, in which was part of that procured pay cycle, would be long-term contracts would have the appropriate checkpoints within them to make sure that they're performing as anticipated from both sides. It's not just our side, but from the contractor side also. So I expect when we're reviewing our procure to pay process that we'll make sure that those checkpoints are in place.
Okay. I might just, we'll touch base with you, just proper clarification instead of discussing more about it now, if that's okay.
No problem.
Just as a reminder, Nicole, you know, absolutely touch base with Calvin, but excuse me, this work plan aligns to our terms of reference. So, and are probably at a much higher level, whereas that detail is probably, you know, is lower, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have a home somewhere. But yeah, we just need to make sure that this work plan always stays true to the terms of reference. Deborah, I think your hand's up.
Can you hear me? I'll switch off my video so you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Just with the follow-up from Shane, with regards to the Directors of Institute course for incoming councillors, I think it's valuable that we actually have an induction process with regards to what local government's all about and how to actually participate in local government processes. And, you know, I mean, basically, it's okay taking new councillors, but it's always good to sort of have a refresher. So just with regards to looking at governance, induction, and then with the understanding of where you sit with regards to the Directors of Institute training, because I think you need some background understanding before you go straight into Directors of Institute training. Just to comment on that one. With regards to, I guess, our work plan, I sent through a comment about New Zealand Audit, and I just wonder, given that they oversee our reports, whether their reporting should be included in our work plan somewhere. I see we've got an auditor management review letter, but I don't know whether it fits exactly in our financial governance section. Maybe I'll take a lead on somebody giving me feedback.
Yeah, the audit management review letter is their feedback, Deborah. That's how they officially do that, and we're discussing that later on this morning. With respect to your induction, note your comments. We're actually reviewing the induction process at the moment. And my third comment is you'll recall that there is a significant training budget for all elected members to be used over a 3-year period, and that will be retained post-election.
Deborah, just adding to, like, if you look under internal controls and assurance in the work program, when Calvin kind of delivers what independent assurance he's getting, then we will obviously receive a report that will have some actions and findings in it. And then as a governing committee, we would expect to get progress of those items being closed out. So that's probably the home of where Audit New Zealand's actions can sit. And I guess as chair and of, you know, and sitting on the governing committee, I'm not concerned about kind of low level items or of actions, but I probably do want to know I guess they're red, you know, if you use the traffic light red or kind of moderate issues, then I'd want to know that they have been closed out. So good point. Yeah, that's where it probably sits. We can get confirmation of the progress on that.
Okay, thanks, Annalise.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you for that. There are none from me. Mine have been answered. So could I have someone to please move the manager's report? Thank you, Murray, and a seconder. Thank you, Shane. All those in favour? Great, thank you. Move to item number 9, which is the finance and performance report.
Right, so we've got the report for the period ended 31 January 2022. Net surplus is running at 15.5 ahead of the budget at this time of the year. Probably other highlights to note there are actually continued low light is performance in the building consenting space, fairly consistent with where we were last period. Otherwise, good progress across our facilities in terms of attendance and contract service levels. Probably slightly back in the facilities from where we'd expect, but we have got the headwinds of COVID and a lot of people staying indoors and away from things. Capital expenditure in the month 46 in the year to date 46.9, and that's running a little bit lower than we'd anticipated. So that gap is at 14.1, and we're just doing some analysis currently on what that will look like at year end and where we may be carrying forward items. Just an update on building consents in terms of numbers, up 10% on last year, and resource consents up a 20% increase in the same period of last year. So both of those are still running at high demand. The facilities fees and charges, you can see there that the trend is consistent with prior years, albeit the swimming area a little bit lower. But our community centres, which also includes Selwyn Sports, up a little bit. I won't dive into the detail within that. I'll just take questions, assuming it's all been read.
Thank you, Calvin. Murray, your hand up.
Yeah, it's just the transportation overspend, Kelvin, and you've noted there, you know, that's the flood event. And the cost there, I think 5.8 million off the top of my head. Reimbursement from Waka Kotahi, when are we aware of when we'll get notification of what level we get that funded to? Because it's going to affect our discussions, I suspect, around annual plan.
Yes, I'll just need to get confirmation on whether it has been paid or not, but it's around the 51% mark that we will be receiving.
Sort of your traditional percentage. Yes. Reimbursement. Yeah, thank you.
Boss.
Oh, Shane, thank you.
Sorry, I had my mic unmuted already. Thanks, Calvin. I guess just concerned around the capital investment gap. You've mentioned that the year to date, the gap is out to 14.1 now, and you've also mentioned that you'll be doing some work around that. When would we expect to see that work?
Oh, it's ongoing now, Shane. It's probably likely next month we'll have a better understanding. It's part of the planning process where we're looking at what will potentially be carried forward. We do have that the headwinds of supply chain in front of us, which delay things, and we do tend to have a slower start to the year, and it ramps up at the latter end. So think of it looking like a hockey stick in your spend profile. That's typically what occurs within a council environment, and probably a lot of organisations, they spend so much time planning up front and then you spend later in the year. But next month we'll have something back.
I think the message to councillors on that matter is, and you hear it from me every year, we do get a wee bit enthusiastic with the CapEx program that we want to put in to our annual plan at times. which forces us to have this discussion that we're having at the moment. So we know we're under considerable pressure at the moment, capacity-wise, to deliver, and there's also cost escalation. So one of the key questions that Kelvin and I would be expecting you to ask and challenge us when we have the draft annual plan discussion hearing is around capacity to deliver, to ensure that A, we can meet our CapEx spend, and B, we're significantly minimising the carry forwards that we have.
Thank you. And I just had one secondary question from that, and it's in relation to page 84, the refuge operations tip charges are unfavourable to budget at 930k. However, this is offset by increasing dumping fees incomes. Is that traditionally how we balance it, and shouldn't we generally be raising the tip fees so that it's cleaner?
Yes, the fees are set on an annual basis through the planning process.
Yes.
What we are facing here right at this minute is increased fuel costs. So that's having an impact upon our refuse collection.
Yes.
And we're seeing that certainly when it comes to the annual plan, you'll see that come through.
Thanks, Kelvin.
Murray, did your hand's gone up?
Yeah, it has. Sorry to interject again. David, just the other thing when we come to talking about project delivery is it doesn't all have to be internal. So I expect we'll have a discussion around whether we can farm some of that out. It doesn't necessarily have to be delivered. We're thinking in context of pressures on staff and ability to recruit or retain staff. I think there's a discussion to be had there. So sorry, Annalisa, I know it's not in the context of this meeting, but I just felt it needed to be said.
Just on that point, a high percentage of our capital spend is going external. It's most of the internal cost is around the planning aspects, design aspects, management aspects. Delivery typically is external. Yeah,
I guess what I'm getting at, Kelvin, is perhaps the SSC model that we used for delivery of that. It was just a different operational or a different way of contracting that out, and that discussion to be had yet about whether that was or wasn't successful, but in another time, and yeah, but
no, I understand.
I think there are models that we could possibly explore that could take some of that internal pressure off. So yeah.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Thanks, Murray, for that question on capacity delivery. I'm just starting to wonder whether we have to look at some of our external contracts and actually question whether they have the capacity to deliver. Getting some not so great feedback with regards to township maintenance issues at the moment, and some other issues around roading and the patch-up jobs that's happening versus the duration of actually doing it once and doing it properly, or coming back and actually having to do it time and time again to patch up one area and then another area. And it's not the cell one that a lot of our older ratepayers actually remember with regards to our maintenance. And I just wonder how we can actually improve on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, that was the point I was making before around capacity to deliver. So there's three things that we are very mindful, we being the council, but more importantly, the contracting sector at the moment. The first one is resourcing and availability of appropriate resources, bearing in mind that in Canterbury, unemployment rates are pretty low at the moment. Second one is supply chain and the effect that that's having on our time frame for delivery of work. And the third one is cost associated, with supply chain and cost escalation, but even things like the minimum wage, that impacts, and it's the concertina effect that we get going right through. So again, just mindful of those three.
Just on that, David, and I'm taking our council backwards. we used to rely a lot on township maintenance being undertaken by local people, local volunteers. I know we have the issue around health and safety, but is there any way that we can actually find a model that incorporates the training of volunteers to actually take some of the pressure off and make their local communities a really loving place to live, that they can pay it forward or give back, instead of, I see it as the centralisation model, as we can do everything from in-house. I just think there needs to be maybe another model that could be looked at.
Shut up. I guess, kia ora, Annalisa, thank you. I just, additionally to Deborah's comments on contractors, consultants, we spend millions of dollars a year on external consultants, and I just wonder how that process, how a review process is conducted to analyse performance and accuracy.
Yes, for you, Madam Chair. Yeah, there is a regular process that we follow at operational level to assess the performance of all of those people that are either contracting or providing professional advice into council at the moment, Shane. Yeah.
Thank you.
No other questions? I just had one question, not sort of financial related, but it kind of jogged my kind of thought process just around our facilities. Is there, do you think there's any risk that any of these facilities may have to shut at this current time? Just looking at some of the other councils in the region where, you know, libraries and swimming pools.
Should we cover that one off?
Should
we cover that one, Annalisa, off in a health and safety report?
Okay. Yeah, good idea. Sorry. Yeah. Nothing else from me. No other questions. If I could have someone to move finance report, just hand goes up and then thanks, Murray. We'll scroll through and then lose it. And a seconder. Thank you, Deborah. All those in favour. Thank you. So we move on to Audit New Zealand's report.
Thank you. So the Audit New Zealand report is a report that the auditors prepare at the conclusion of the audit after signing off. This report it's very comprehensive and goes right through from the scope of the audit through to their findings, and they're generally set at a much lower level than you'll see. Well, it is a lower level than you'll see that's in the audit opinion. They have set a series of recommendations within it and have set them with a ranking as towards what the severity is of it, and generally as is in pretty good shape. So a summary of those recommendations are included on page 92 and 93 of the agenda. Of those, there's a few of them that are in train currently and have been closed out, and we are in a process of working through the others. They're not particularly worrying or of concern. There's a bit of tidy up stuff around valuations, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape. Overall, it's a reasonably good audit report. So I'll take questions.
Shane, thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Thanks for the report. Kelvin, or perhaps David, do we compare previous reports and compile information to see whether we are on target with previous reports, or whether we've made significant gains over the period of time from year to year? It would seem that the recommendations, although there are tidy ups and they seem quite, maybe in your opinion, Kelvin, minor sort of tidy up things at a fairly sort of, I guess, staff or council level, shouldn't they have all been already been sort of up to date? Are they something that continue to develop into recommendations from audit and risk? Are we confident that we're on top of them? You've already mentioned that, Kelvin. One of the recommendations is recommends that eliminating profit on intra-group assets. That seems to have been something that has come up again, and that's why I've asked the question: are we confident in our position? As that's not the first time it's been recommended. Also on page 109, there's a recommendation to assess external accounts, assess monthly accounts externally. And I just wonder who will be doing this. Was it too early to tell? Thank you.
Okay, well, to address the first point first, in my career as an accountant and receiving management reports, I've never ever come across one which doesn't have a recommendation because the auditors feel that they have to put something in, however minor. So no offense to any auditors listening, but that's what occurs. My approach with these is that my intention will be to clear all recommendations annually on this, so it's clean going into the next one, and there has been some hangover from the past on this, but intention is to clear it. With regards to the inter-group revenues, can you just reference the page on that, Shane?
I would like to, but I haven't written it in my notes. Apologies. I'll flick through and have a quick look now and bring it back to you.
Okay, and then the other point was around independent review of monthly reconciliations. Is that the one? So that's just a standard process which occurs, and in this case here it was around monthly cash and debtor reconciliations. What had been occurring is, as those were being not marked off as being completed and not as timely as possible, they are occurring, but it's more around the evidence of that occurring.
Okay, Murray.
Yeah, thanks, Annalisa. Kelvin, you've answered my first question, which was going to be time frame. So the fact that you're looking to clear annually before the next one is fantastic. Just referencing page 123 with ICT, and the management comment there is that they do not intend to implement regular full reviews of system access. I would have thought that was at odds with the discussion we've had at previous audit and risk around our security of our network, and I'm just wondering why that would be in there. The other commentary I'll make is, and I'm sure again this has been raised, is the sorry, I'll try and find the page number. I think it's 129 and 130. It's just the commentary there around reporting misstatements, which is number of complaints, etc., for wastewater. It's something we raised before that was been missing in our annual report. And I know it was raised. In fact, I'm pretty sure I raised it, that we don't get those we weren't getting those metrics at that stage, and it was a work stream that we'd put back on management to bring forward and make sure it was not missed. So yeah, just some commentary on those two.
Okay, Murray, so the first one around that network system access, there was a comment from last response, and we have moved forward somewhat on this. So we don't get an opportunity to update those previous ones, but where my stance is on this, we're looking at the process for access into the system and exit out of the system, and at what point we do spot checks and samples on it. But if we get the flow working correctly between the payroll and HR through to IS, that should close things out, and we shouldn't have too many issues. In regards to that water one, yes, that's just a point we need to address.
Yeah, great, Calvin. I knew we'd discussed it, and I knew that there was an agreement that we would carry that forward. The reason I raised the ICT one was that we have in the past been aware that exiting employees have still been on our register, you know, email register, etc. And it was about ensuring that we didn't have unauthorised, you know, talking to the converted here, unauthorised access back into our system of former employees or whatever. So yeah, thank you.
There's situations where we do hold staff who have left their email accounts open, so we can, and they'll get directed to another staff member just to close out certain matters. But the reality is that they don't have access into the network. They lose that right.
David, do you have a comment?
Madam Chair, I do. From a CE perspective, I'm very happy with the content of this audit report and the recommendations that are contained in it. One of the keys to reading the report is, so you start on in section 3, which is on page 102, and it's the commentary under the heading outcome of our audit procedures, and read the last paragraph that's written in each case, which talks about degrees of satisfaction from the audits team, and very, very comforting reading. And I want to particularly refer to one on page 106 because it has been raised by a number of Audit and Risk Subcommittee members, and that's in respect to procurement. And I just read from page 106, commentary, we found that Council has made continuous progress on its procurement and contract management process. Council's contract admin manual has been progressively improved, etc., etc. And that, I know, Deborah, you've been raising those questions quite correctly over a period of time. So quite heartening to read that. There is one aspect, however, of the report that I'm not happy with, and that is the final paragraph on page 101, which will be subject to further discussion between Kelvin, myself on the one hand, and the audit team on the other hand, and we will report that back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I completely agree. I think it's a fairly good news story. Just kind of wrapping up a few comments. You know, I always look at their guidance, you know, for their rating, which they use urgent, necessary, or beneficial. So coming back to my earlier comment, as an Audit and Risk Committee kind of oversight group, I would want to ensure that anything that urgent or necessary was, you know, closed out in a fairly timely manner. Beneficial, it's almost their take it or leave it. They have, you know, in their view, they still think we should implement those changes, but they have provided a kind of, you know, as long as the benefit outweighs the cost. So I guess that gives management some room to consider, you know, whether it's going to be a value-adding exercise to do that. So just coming back to our annual plan that supports our terms of reference, and now that we are getting into or moving towards good practice of doing more internal audit, you know, we've got our PIR internally, we've got, you know, that second and third line of defence occurring this year. I haven't got that annual plan in front of me because I've obviously scrolled on, but we probably as a governing committee want to get an update on these actions at least quarterly. So just going back to your little grey boxes, Kelvin, I'm not sure if that was twice yearly, but I'm just thinking that I think it would be good as we get more and more internal audit activity occurring. It only needs to be a 1 or 2 pager, but just gives us like almost an aging of where these items are so that we know that we're on task for closing them out. But again, only things that are significant or, you know, we don't need to know about things that are less value adding, I guess. But yeah, as you said, fairly good news story. So other than that, if I can take someone to move this report, please. Bob, thank you. And a seconder. Scrolling the wrong way. Sorry, I might have to need another hand up because I move along and then the hand up. I think Nicole, thank you. All those in favour, thank you. So move on to the Treasury Report.
You got me again. So we'll move to this December Treasury Report, given there was no meeting prior to this since December quarter ended. Gross borrowings at the end of that quarter were up slightly, 5 million, and you'll remember we drew down 5 million because we had debt maturing in April, so we brought that on a little bit earlier and hedged that away. Just to note, during February we've drawn down another 15 million of debt, and that was hedged at reasonably attractive rates. Cash on hand coming down, which you'd expect when we start to draw debt, meaning our net debt's up. Cost of debt is really up slightly, and you'll see when we talk later around OCR and various things like that, investments in the same sort of spot. Our debt position, we're all within our risk parameters within that, and moving forward to interest rate risk, likewise inside our risk parameters there. We will adjust that upper band of where we require debt as and when we change plans and move forward on plans. You can see the interest rate swaps there. As you see, there's a few more to come in, but you know, those low rates we're not going to see for a little while now as prices are moving up. Cash management, not a lot to note there, not much change on where we were previously. Debtors continue to be performing well, and as Friday I was with the other councils in Canterbury, the finance managers, and the debt position seems to be holding well for most councils around the place, so that's pleasing to see. So we're not seeing any significant or material impact of COVID upon debt collection around the place, which is pleasing. But really good performance and where our debt is, and you can see the percentage of our total rates and the outstanding amounts at 2.6 compared with 3.1 this time last year. Market information, OCR bumped up last week by 25 basis points. There's sort of a swing, it could have gone 0.5 or 0.25, so very close call. The information that we're receiving and the advice we're getting is potential to see that up around the 3 to 3.5% mark where it'll terminate at, and before probably flattening out for some time before falling away again. With inflation being the way it is, it's meaning that the interest rate is having to move, which will put pressure on our communities. So if you see an OCR of 3.5, it's likely the mortgage rates are going to be around the 6 mark. So you think of that combined with cost of living, that has a fairly material impact on our community's back pocket. Yeah, the CPI is the big one you can see there, and even just we're looking at our development contribution rates yesterday and how they may change when we apply the PPI adjuster, and the PPI adjustment for the December year is around about 8%, so that's quite a lift. So we'll be applying that. Happy to take questions.
Thanks, Kelvin. Murray?
Yeah, thanks, Kelvin. I guess you've partially answered my question on their debt position and made a brief commentary there on page 136. I just made a note saying, have we got the balance right about our spread, 0 to 3, 3 to 7, 7 to 12, and your commentary around that, the official cash rate rising to 3.5, which is what the prediction is, and who knows, predictions often go wrong. Do we need to have and I'm just suggesting we discuss it now because we probably need a great deal more information, but when you made that commentary, are you thinking of looking at a different, within our parameters, or even changing our parameters if we need to? I'll let you answer that one first if you wished, and then there's another question on page, I think it's 138.
In terms of changing, I wouldn't be proposing to the committee or the council anyway to change our risk parameters around debt. But what I would be thinking about is whether we just look at the tenure of some of that debt in the future and seeing where it lands. What we are seeing is the 5-year and 10-year rates are flattening out and being very consistent. So we're not seeing the back end keep on going, but are seeing a sort of a flat rate running across, which is probably a bit of comfort that the market doesn't see that there's going to be a further increase beyond that 3.
Thanks, Calvin. I tend to agree. It'll be an ongoing discussion. The other one is page 138, and it's your term deposits. If I'm reading that right, the maturity is all this year. Should we be looking at spreading that as well to make, or are you staying short term to take advantage of the potential rising interest rates? Is that the strategy?
No, this will be just the tenure that we've locked in. So you can see the start date was sort of all last year. We are starting to see that rise. So I'd be at this point looking at a shorter tenure if I was depositing right now and looking to capitalise later on. But there's quite a lag in that. As you'll all know from if anyone has their own deposits, it's certainly your mortgage rate moves a hell of a lot quicker than your deposit rate. So really just one to monitor.
Yeah, you're right, Calvin. Funny that, isn't it? It's like fuel prices. Yeah, no, thanks for your answers.
Thanks, Murray. Shane?
Kia ora, Calvin. Kia ora, Sam. Welcome. Just following on from Murray's discussion there around risk parameters, and traditionally, I guess what we're looking at is the original historic investment, a safe investment. Have we considered other opportunities for greater return? And I guess that probably don't need to get into that conversation now, but could there be other opportunities out there to give a greater return, a better value for money? And the second question is, with the potential for the Three Waters transfer of asset, how does that affect our treasury position?
Right, just addressing the first one. So, look, the money on deposit, it's not a lot, and I'll be very reluctant to go and put that into anything that ties it up in a longer term basis. It's there, good liquidity measure sitting there. And really, you'd probably want to bring that deposit down and lower your debt. And we do have in the plan monies for investment, and we'll discuss that through the investment strategy piece. In regards to Three Waters and our treasury position, not a lot should change within that, and we don't anticipate that we'll have any lesser ability to borrow for what we would normally be wanting to spend on. Yes, we do lose some income, but remembering that income is really only paying for the cost of ongoing maintenance to those assets, renewal of assets, and investment in new assets. It's not generating a profit where that would feed into any other debt management. So it shouldn't impact our ability to borrow in any way or our credit rating.
Thank you.
Scrolling along, checking. I can't see any other hands up. Any other questions? No. Great, thank you, Calvin. Very I always enjoyed reading your Treasury Report. Almost feels like it brings me up to, it gives me the good intel on what I need to know for council, but also what's generally happening in the market. So, and some great questions. So if there's no other questions, I can have someone move the Treasury Report, please. Thank you, Shane, and a seconder. Sorry, thank you, Deborah. All those in favour? Great. All right, exciting next agenda item. Long time coming, PIR report.
Now I'm going to end up handing across here to Craig Robinson to walk through this. Unfortunately, Jenny's not able to make it today. She's had a bit of a health issue this morning, so I'll just quickly introduce it, and I'll let Craig take you through the highlights. We don't intend to dwell too long on it. It was a good news story, but it has drawn out some interesting and useful findings, which we are already taking forward into new projects. And one in particular is the Leaston activity, and sort of stepping back somewhat and making sure that we've got the right governance model internally within the council staff, but also being very clear on what we want to achieve. So just to remind the committee what a PIR is, it's about grabbing a hold of the project which has been completed and doing a dive through it to understand what occurred well, where there's opportunities for improvement, and is it delivering what we hope the project would deliver. The key point is with those learnings to be able to take those forward and use those as organisational learning going forward. So the shape of the report itself is a summary page which Craig will walk through, and this is just a summary for this committee. There is a full report which management have sitting behind this, which goes into a lot more detail sort of beyond what is probably required from a governance point of view. But if anyone is interested in having a look at that report, we're happy to circulate it around. So I'll hand to Craig to run through.
Thanks, Calvin. Can everyone hear me? Cool. First, I'd like to say that the process of this post-implementation review of SCC was very enlightening from my perspective, and I have to say it introduced a whole range of structure around what we have done in the past, or as imposed it on what we should be doing in the past, and it's actually highlighted a lot of things to me which we need to address. The SCC project, or the Selwyn Sports Centre project, overall went very well. It actually delivered exactly what the community was requiring. As a community asset, it's second to none and is getting very, very good reviews. The other side of the review was it actually gave us a tool now to actually measure all projects. And it highlighted a lot of inconsistencies in the way that we actually deal with projects. It showed up that we actually deal in silos, and one department doesn't talk to another department. And as Calvin said, we're actually taking forward a lot of the recommendations that's come out of this PIR to actually put into our new projects going forward. It's been very, very well managed by Jenny, and I have to take my hat off to her because it's an excellent document. And I think we can see going forward, if we rely on the structure, we should be getting some very good outcomes and have confidence that our major projects are being managed well. Happy to take questions, but Jenny is probably the best one to answer all this. So, but I can certainly write your questions down.
Craig, so I don't know if it was Murray or Nicole, but maybe we'll go ladies first. Nicole.
Thanks, Vet. Thanks, Craig, and please pass on my thanks to Jenny for this report. For the others here, Sam and I were interviewed as well as part of this because we were the project champions on this report. So I would quite like to see the whole report as well to see what was behind it. But Calvin, you mentioned about taking the findings onto other projects that we've got going, and you talked about the Leaston one. It's obviously one that's not started yet, but are we looking at our current major projects that are in place going at the moment and seeing how they are looking when we compare with these findings that we've made here?
Can I answer that, Calvin?
Go for it.
What I would be very surprised, Nicole, if we don't find the same issues with all of our projects that we have found with SCC. It would be quite a shock if we had a total turnaround on one project from where there was obvious problems in another project. I think, and I said to Jenny, all we need to do is change the name on the PIR review for any of our projects, and we'll still finish up with the same result.
I mean, you can understand where I'm coming from, that, I mean, we need to try and change how we're focusing that, and anything that's in train at the moment, we should, even though it's in train, we should still be looking at it, I would have hoped.
Yeah, that's correct, Nicole. We are, the bulk of our projects are sort of at the end of their life. with the exception of the town centre, which is starting to move forward into that. So yes, a lot of those findings will work through into the town centre piece. And I think one of the key things is, if you go to page 148, which is included in the appendix, is how we configure our work. And we are very much a project by project business as opposed to a program business. And so the most material change we want to be able to make is to say, and we've used an example here of Foster Park Development, it's actually a program of work which has a series of projects set within it, and they're interconnected, and making sure that when the planning occurs that we're thinking about not only in this case the stadium, but we're also looking at things around the outside of it, how that then connects with the turfs that are being built. And so we actually have a holistic view that comes back to strategy. So if you put in Leaston in this, and I saw early draft of how the model for that works, it's got a series of potential projects, which will be a community facility. Say we've got a library which has got some issues, it needs to be sorted as well, a whole lot of other bits and pieces going on, and that comes together as a program, and not only a program around the building of it, but how do we then operate and live within it. And so focusing our projects on away from the building aspect, but more around the outcomes that we want to achieve from the project. So it just flips it around. Subtle changes, but they'll make a massive difference.
No, I was really pleased to see this outline that Jenny had done on page 148, actually, you know, breaking it down with Foster Park, how everything sits together, even talking about that the swimming pool across the road is actually part of that whole recreation facility, even though it's, you know, water and the sports centre and stuff, and community services has actually, as part of their monthly passes that they've got, you can get for, I mean, the aquatic centre and the sports centre are together on those, and you know, operationally it's going like that. So it is good that we're looking as an organisation across the whole thing, and hopefully across the whole organisation looking at everything like this. So thanks for this work, and pass my thanks on to Jenny too, please.
Thanks, Nicole. Murray, you are next.
Yeah, thanks. Nicole's largely asked the question I was going to, but I'd also just like to congratulate staff and you and Lisa as the skill set you've brought round the table to us to drive this forward. And I think it's been a great addition and a grasping and understanding of where we sit in the process, and the conversation around silo effect. We know that happens in any big organisation, and it's about finding a method to counteract that and get all the voices heard. And I think especially, and look, we're yet to have the SAC review, and I look forward to that, because I'm sure, as Kelvin says, we will find, as Craig said, we'll find similar issues there in the delivery and the planning of that, which we'll go forward in a better space to do that. But one of the things that we need to have grasped, I think, and we tried to do that with SAC, and sorry to transport into that one, and I'm sure it was done also with Selwyn Sports Centre, was to bring the people who are going to be operating the facility in at the planning process stage. And so it's not just about a building, it's actually about what it delivers and where does that fit into our network. So hugely valuable exercise, and I look forward to the ones going forward and the way that it will drive current and future projects. I think it's just enormously beneficial from an efficiency perspective and an understanding. And actually it's a good way to put this information out in front of our community too, to say this is the greater overall plan. And I sometimes think it does look piecemeal, and if we can deliver, you know, the page 148 as an overall initiative to the community to say, well, this is the direction we're going and this is why, and it's supported by this information. Absolutely fantastic. So well done.
Thanks, Murray. It really is. It is a subtle change, but it's the evolution of where we're going as an organisation to think about Denise having a strategy around community engagement in the context here of recreation and well-being. To think, I've got these outcomes I want for the community. How do I then achieve them? And part of that is building facilities. where historically we might have been about we need a new community facility, and then we think about the outcome it'll deliver second. So just flipping that on its head somewhat will end up, I believe, delivering better outcomes for the community.
Sam.
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate the previous two comments that have been made. For me, it's kind of thinking too, how do we have a conversation with our community at the front end that isn't that each of the facilities, Foster Park is one project, sure, and the community was consulted on it as one, but actually when it came to building anything, it came down to what rate is going to be affected, and then it came down to, so what's the building going to be, and what's the cost of that building, and what does that do? Is that moving it from $200 to $250 on my rates, or whatever it is? So we also need to think about our own comms and how we talk about the ongoing build through this. So yeah, I was kind of really appreciate the feedback, and I think it highlights lots of things, particularly the bringing the operations on board early and not thinking about the project as just the build. But there's also a piece I think missing around, and it might be in the full report, so I'll read that, but just around how we actually communicate with the community and sell the idea of the rates increase for an outcome. We sort of tag it to a particular part of it rather than the overall picture. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Shane?
Yep, agree with the comments, and well done on implementing the PIR. Craig, you've mentioned some of the issues that were found, in particular silos, and that's been a conversation that's come up on a number of occasions. Who will be responsible for bringing down, I guess, or reducing barriers of these silos? And were there any other issues that you saw that would be pertinent to this report? And also, just under the finances, return on investment is to be TBD. I'm not too sure what that means, but what does that mean? At some point in the community, determined. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. Just on the return on investment, we have to develop a model which takes into consideration the community good. Because a normal return on investment is purely what you're getting out of it against what you're investing, but we have to put a figure on community good. Sorry, what was the first question you asked?
I'll grab that one, Craig, around silos.
Okay.
So,
right.
There's two aspects to it. One around how we set up the governance for these projects, and as I outlined before, Leaston is taking a new approach on that, where it's very clear as to who the sponsors are of the project, and making sure that the right people are engaged at the right time along the projects. And then the second element of that is a wider element, and I'm sure David will discuss that with the Greater Council at some point, and maybe even today, around how some of those silos become broken down.
Thanks, Calvin. Deborah.
So you can hear me. Look, thanks very much for the report. And thanks for the mentioning of the governance issue. What I'm interested is comparing how we actually structured our internal management of this project, and have we had the opportunity to compare it with how Christchurch City Council has structured a board like they're actually undertaking for their large sports community facilities? Has there been a comparison done on what actually is the best practice, what improvements can be made? And I guess it's sharing the successes of a report like this with neighbouring councils, so we all get to learn and share in the information, instead of us getting it directed through to our audit and risk and it just sitting on the shelf. I think there's wider issues at play here, whereas we can make improvements by talking to our neighbours, but also we can help other councils. And I just wonder, is it appropriate to actually share this report and gain some further knowledge?
Maybe, Madam Chair, I could help with the answer to that, Deborah, which is that we're actively engaged in cross-boundary discussions on a whole lot of subjects at any one time. So we always do share our information and our best practice, particularly acknowledging resource pressures that we have at the moment across the entire sector.
The other point is learnings on this is I wouldn't restrict it to other councils.
No.
A lot of most organisations are doing projects, and there's some very successful outcomes that can be leveraged on. In regards to the board for the Christchurch build one, I think it's just generally the public expectation on that one, and there's no doubt there'll be some further large issues on that one around funding in the future. So I think that's why there's a board on that one that can actually dive in and deep on that project as opposed to the council trying to run it.
Thank you.
Calvin, Sam, do you still have your hand up? Or was that from before?
Projects, small projects that National Council.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so your hand's down, sorry. So, David, do you comment?
Yeah, look, I just want to firstly acknowledge council or comments, but thanks to staff who have been involved in preparing this. I know, Madam Chair, that you've been looking forward to this process in the first report for quite some time. So it is a very comprehensive, good news story, but equally it's a very good learning document. And the thing that I would say to members of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee is more and more you're hearing Calvin and I talk about business cases for projects. Where is the business case? And this is a really good starting point to make sure that we incorporate a lot of the expected outcomes and disciplines that we're reading in the back end of this report into the business case that you are asking to be presented as part of the decision-making process to proceed with any project. And we've got a couple of quite good models in front of us at the moment that this could well be applied to. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thanks, David. Great commentary and good questions. So I don't really have too much to add, as I've been very excited about reading this report. I enjoyed reading. I know it's obviously just a sort of an exec summary. For me, I actually like page 146. That gives a good summary on time, cost, quality, health and safety. So yeah, it gives a really good sort of summary of how the project went. A couple of comments from me that have largely been said already, but it is, I guess, this is a great starting point, but I still kind of expect we're on a journey of continuous improvement, and it's around taking that program view rather than a project view. And I say that because I'm sort of looking at the benefits and which comes through the business case. We need to get that right when we're developing the business case and articulating what are the benefits of this capital program and how are we going to measure them. And sometimes that needs to be we need a multiple of projects to be able to measure that. But good if we'd done the business case and we'd articulated what those benefits were, how are we measuring them now? And I guess we've got, a healthy community and not kind of, qualitative type measures, haven't we? So they're harder to measure. But again, this is this continuous journey that will actually start with the business case, so making sure that we do articulate those benefits clearly at the very beginning of the project. The other item is, and it has been mentioned as well, it's around capturing the lessons learned. So coming back to my earlier discussion around we're moving through a great level of maturity in that second and third line of defence of management doing internal audit, and then we're going to be getting some independent audit as well. Is it just making sure that we capture any actions or items and that we get an update of the progress of those. So maybe at a later stage through Jenny's report, if there are lessons learnt that are going to be taken on to other projects in a program view, that we get an update on the progress of how they are being implemented. But other than that, very very pleased to read it. A great day, and huge congratulations to Jenny and the rest of the team that have made this happen. So thank you very much. So if I could have someone move the PIR report. Thank you, Nicole, and second Shane. All those in favour? That's great. Now let's focus on the time. I think it was 11 that we had, 11 or 10 that Marsh are waiting, but I think we'll just quickly move through the major projects report and then we can move into PX.
Okay, the major projects report, in general terms, this is the December and January report. If we just look at the major projects, SAC the aquatic centre was finished in late December and open to the public. During commissioning, we had a leak was found in the existing balance tank, but that is manageable according to management, and will be fixed in the first term holidays to resolve any disruption. The risks for this project itself, are now low because the project is complete. Any risk are ongoing operational ones, and they're all centred around, the major part of it are all centred around the COVID-19 and its effect on staff. The financials, we will be getting the final account. It's been submitted to the engineer for approval. I haven't seen it yet, but I have built into my forecast what I think the end result will be, and at the moment is running about 1.15 million over budget, and that's broken down into the variations exceeding the contingency by about 330,000, maintenance and its associated variations 290,000, and unexpected maintenance 520,000. So at the moment, yeah, it's 1.15 million over budget. TRRTIA, if anyone wants to raise a question, quite happy to take it now.
Maybe just keep moving through projects and come back. Yeah.
Sure. TRRTIA, it was also finished in December, and it's now in its defects period. The risks of the project are low. Any ongoing risk like SAC is operational ones centered around COVID. Financials, my current estimate is 1.33 million over budget, and that's been made up of the contingencies 970,000 and land and car park 360,000. Infrastructure for the Rollerson Town Centre, the placement of services is nearing completion. The roading and car parks numbers 3, 6 and 7 are in various stages of construction. Risks, I've moved from here on and on all projects, all the risks, anything to do with COVID has now gone to medium to high, because the flow on effect into labour shortages and material shortages is quite enormous. I haven't quantified the risks because they actually haven't happened yet, but I'm just waiting to see.
You're frozen, Craig. Is he frozen for everybody else or just me?
No, he's frozen for me as well. Can you hear me, Annalise?
And covered.
Yeah.
Wait. Sorry. Oh, okay. Awaiting completed design of the surrounding buildings. Risks, once again, are all medium to high relating to COVID. The current estimate is that this project will be over budget due to scope changes, with associated estimates for fees and contingency also increasing. At this stage, I'm a bit reluctant to say by how much, but certainly working on that. Rollerson Reserve development, the Century Garden area around TRRTIA has been completed. Risks are the same for the other projects, all to do with COVID. and the current estimate is that the total project will be on time and on budget. The total project, it consists of the sensory garden, the youth zones, and the green space development. The in-house design of the youth space and the green space development has started, so that's taking a lot of our landscape people's time up at the moment. Artificial turfs, services and earthwork are 90% complete, and both turfs are on program. The financials of it, it'll finish on time and on budget. There's a typo there. That's copy and paste problem. Next one, Prebbleton Reserve Extension, stage 1A. That services and earthworks are 95% complete. Concrete work is underway. There has been some delays due to wet weather, but the project is very close to program. Financials, the current estimate is that the total projects will be on time and on budget. And this is a long-term project with various stages included in the long-term plan out to 28-29. So it'll be one that'll be very interesting to look at the total scope of works over a series of period of time. Rollerson Drive and intersection upgrade that includes the Tennyson Street Rollerson Drive set of lights. The sewer and the water mains upgrades have been completed. Trenching for the traffic lights is complete, and piping of the water race and pouring the curb and channels is currently underway. And the financials here, the two projects have been combined into one for reporting purposes due to their close proximity and being completed by the same contractor. There's minimal variations to date, and I've got no reason to believe this will not be completed within budget. Pines 4, this project involves the construction of a new clarifier and the upgrade of the RAS pump station. In anticipation of supply problems, the council approved early procurement of critical elements, and this was undertaken, and because of that, that part of the project is now 85% complete. Construction and the building to house the clarifier is also underway. The current costs to date for the design and the supply of critical elements of the clarifier, there's no variations at the moment recorded against this project. Last but not least, the Darfield Trunk Sewer. 56.22% of the total pipe has been laid, and currently there's 6 crews working at any one time on laying pipe. Against the original timeline, the pipe laying is well behind, and marginally behind the revised. They sent in a revised timeline, and it's marginally behind that. But with the 6 crews working, they will be able to make up that time. Material supply is a risk at the moment due to stock not available after the Christmas shutdown and to potential COVID affecting labour. The Darfield pump station design is complete. The construction timeline for the pump station has been revised, with Darfield to be completed by the end of June 22 and Kirwi by beginning of August 22. The agreement for the land acquisition has been signed by both parties. Currently, there's some health and safety issues which are under investigation, which will be dealt with within health and safety. The financials of it, the final cost of the project is estimated to be between 18.6 and 20.42. Currently, council have approved at 16.96. DIA have funded 10.6, which is required to be spent by the contractor by the end of June 22, and that will be achieved. Any questions? Wow.
Murray.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. SAC, thanks for breaking down part of the over budget costs here, and I know we've approved most of those, and a lot of them, although not all of them, are associated with remediation on the existing pool, not the new build. And I guess when we do the PIR, we'll get a bit more information on that. So I'm not looking for answers on that. But Annalise, I'd just like to signal I'd like to ask a question in PX on SAC. If we can have that noted, I don't think it's appropriate to ask it now. So that can be noted down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bob?
Yep. I think we've discussed it before, but the facade testing at Tiaratia, it just makes me wonder why we have the plans drawn and we have the engineering done, and then we pay to get it tested. It just makes me wonder why this happened, and is there anything we can do in the future to stop this sort of thing? The other thing is the Darfield pipeline. There's a developer that's been told he will be able to start pumping sewage on the 1st of July from Kerwee, so that date looks a bit out. Have we been in touch with the developers? And the other one is the Darfield pool. Asked lots of questions about what's being done, and others might know, but I don't really know what's being done. So I was wondering if we get a small report on just what actually is being done. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Bob. The facade, it's a question that staff has asked, why are we paying for it? But it has, I'm not convinced the answer is correct that we've been given, but the testing was required just to make sure that it was up to scratch. I can't give you a more indefinite answer to that. Douglas may have more information, and he won't be online until PX.
Will you be pursuing that further? Because I don't think that's a good enough answer when you pay professionals.
Can I just address that for a moment? So you'll remember there was some fixing issues with the facade, which required some rework, and it related to that rework on those fixings. So Douglas will be negotiating out where the costs sit, but that was just where the background to it.
Thank you.
Bob, regards to the Darfield pool, remember in the long-term plan, out the tail is some funding to be built at some point, but in the near term there's to be some maintenance work occur. I think that'll come through and possibly one of Denise's reports around her facilities.
And the other one's about the time lag for the Kerwee connection for the sewerage.
Yeah, I'll take that one away and discuss that with Murray.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Kelvin, Shane.
Yeah, kia ora, Craig. I feel a wee bit sorry for you, Craig. You either get a satisfactory or you get the pointy end of the sharp end of the stick. Yeah, a lot of these reports. I'm guessing Murray. Thanks for. Yeah, I did not ask that question, and Murray may have the same question, so I'll leave it for PX on the SAC. Thanks for asking that question, Bob, regarding responsibilities of variations. I hope to see that come through with more clarity soon. Yeah, and my question is related to variations and responsibilities of, and the gap that there is relates back to the assessment and review of external consultants, and particularly the Pines, the pipeline at the moment. Obviously, that's the largest variation in our projects so far. I wonder how we got that variation, got to that point, and who is responsible for the variation at 3.5 million, I think it is, isn't it, or something like that. So how did we get so far out of whack there, out of difference, and ultimately who was responsible will be the council, obviously, and our constituents would have to pay for that extra cost. But I want to know, what contingencies are there in place? How do we mitigate this risk in the future? And ultimately, who is responsible for it at this point?
Just to background that question, Shane, remember DIA came forward with some monies for us to go out and do some waters work as part of 3 Waters proposal. It was a reasonably short time frame for getting this project across, and Murray Washington and Murray England put forward some proposals around options to take, and you councillors chose the Darfield pipeline. From memory, it might not have been the case, but that's the one chosen. So it was a very rush exercise to get pricing through. So the pricing originally started at around the DIA money. Once further designs went in place, the LTP had that up to what is sitting on the report at 14 plus million. And then we had a further report come through a little bit later once we got more detail around requiring land and pumping stations and various things, would push the cost up to the 16.96, which was approved. As time's gone on and material costs, actual labour costs, it looks as if it'll be higher. We've forecast 20.4 as an estimate of that. It may be that, maybe less, maybe more. But our issue is that very compressed timeline. We probably didn't go through the normal process of scoping, budgeting, business casing to get to this point, and it was for the right reasons. We're delivering something to Darfield and Kirwee, but it highlights how process was not followed and we wound up in this space.
I guess you're saying it's quite an expensive lesson to learn, and that PIR will be something of value, high value in this case.
Yeah, from a project context, the project has been running successfully and being delivered as we expected. We're at 56.22% of the pipeline laid. The piece comes back to decision making ultimately on this one and how that occurred.
Nicole.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, Calvin, I was going to ask questions around some of the pricing on that Darfield sewer as well. So you've explained, because my concern is, where it says about the professional fees and stuff like that, if that's part of the whole 20 million that we've got there. And I mean, obviously that difference, I assume, is going to come through in the annual plan process. Now, question I have, because I saw from the financial report, so we've got 6.3 million from DIAs, that's written on page 83 of the report. It says it's a grant that's been paid, but I assume it's been from DIA for the pipeline, Darfield pipeline. So we're coming up, so we've got a month left. So we obviously haven't got the whole 10 million. From the financials that are here, we haven't received we haven't been paid 10 million yet. So how is it going to pan out to actually have spent that money and got the money from DIA with this magic date of 31st of March?
If I'm understanding correctly, Nicole, the revenues won't appear in the major projects report. This is just the cost of the project.
Oh, okay.
We'll have a revenue stream come in to show the funding. So it's similarly we don't show the funding for other projects in terms of the project costs. It's purely cost. Regarding collection of the remaining amounts, I'd need to defer to Craig on that just to find out timing on that. But
yes, I'd have to take a lead from Gareth at this point, but from what I understand, DIA does an audit, and they have already done an audit on it, and we're one of the few councils who are actually delivering on what we said we're going to deliver, and they were more than happy to give us the extension, because originally it was March, now it's going to be extended to June.
Okay.
So we will spend that money, and Cord / Sycon have given us the assurances that money will be spent to actually qualify to it. That they will pay the last tranche once we've completed the expenditure.
Okay, thank you for that, because I mean that was the motivation to do this project, is because of this $10 million. So hence why I keep asking the question as to whether we're actually going to get all that money back, because particularly now that we're looking at 20 million for the whole thing. So thank you.
And don't forget also, we've pre-ordered quite a lot of pipe that will be covered under that $10 million as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Murray?
Yeah, thanks, Annalisa. I just feel I need to make a commentary about the compressed timeline of that project and the government's decision. I mean, I was always very clear that was a decision that I wanted to make, regardless of the other options put forward, but that's my opinion. But what's important there, it wouldn't have mattered which project that was put forward to expend that money. We still had the same time frame, so we'd have still run into the same issues with having done the work ahead of time to expend that, regardless of whether we chose Darfield pipeline or the other options that were put forward. I think that's slightly irrelevant, to be fair. I think the compressed timeline was placed upon us by central government and DIA, not by a poor governance decision-making process. So I think I'll give a wee bit of pushback in that. I think we need to actually acknowledge the fact that we had to make that decision and have to expend that money. We may have an extension now, but we weren't aware of that at the time we made the decision. So I think that's an important aspect to take into account.
The point I was making on that, Murray, was that this is a substantial project. The other options put forward were less substantial and therefore could be managed in a shorter time frame to get the right pricing forward. And I think a lot of them were around renewals being brought forward and other smaller items, so therefore could be managed in a different way. No reflection on that decision. They're ultimately the right decision in this project, but it has had an implication.
All right, there's no other questions, I think. Can I have someone to move the major projects report, please? Thank you, Murray, and seconder Bob. All those in favour? Great, thank you. Before we move into PX, I just want to do a quick run through of actions just to make sure. Maybe if we go back to our actual action page, which I think is will be page. Actually, if I use the page 12, was it page 10 or 11? I just want to do a quick
11.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, page 11. Great. So yeah, we're doing cyber later. We've got the PIR report, which is great. Yeah. So can I just do a quick run through of any actions that we have captured today, just to make sure that everyone's comfortable that we don't leave it to next Hui and go, oh, I'm sure I raised something. So Therese or Naomi, do you want to just talk us through the actions that you have captured?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was just taking minutes and notes verbatim, so I haven't captured the actions separately. Perhaps Naomi and I can get together in between public and public excluded, or even at the end of the meeting, and do that. Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. We'll do it then.
Annalise.
Sorry, yeah.
I had a question in chat. Should the, sorry, I have to go back to chat.
The Audit New Zealand.
So I had a question at Audit New Zealand, yes. Whether at least the ones in red should actually be on our actions.
Yeah, I think I covered that, or maybe I covered it a bit too subtly. So I expect that to be part of the, maybe it's quarterly, we just need to go back to the annual plan. And all items, so any kind of internal audit, whether it comes out of the PIR review, comes out of an external cyber review, or the Audit New Zealand management comments, letter to management, then, yeah, as you say, that at least the red ones will get a report on that based on the progress on closing it out. Well, not even a report, it can be a half a page, or it can even be included in a management report. Or
okay. And the other one too, which seems to be creeping through, is I guess our external contractors. I'm just wondering, do we need a report understanding our external contracts with regards to I guess compliance, health and safety? How do we monitor their budgets, or how, I mean, do we cap an overrun?
And it's part of the contract management process, which I think Calvin alluded to earlier, which was around, it might be in the procure to pay process, or it might be in contract management process. So, if we deem as a committee that is higher risk, then, perhaps that's an area that we can suggest to Calvin and David, is that there's, an internal audit or a piece of independent assurance on it. I don't think it's a granular piece of activity that we would get, regular monitoring on, because it's part of a good process that we would expect is well managed. But it doesn't mean that we can't have, independent assurance on that, I guess, once, to give us that level of comfort if we deem it to be high risk.
I just wondered whether it should actually go on the actions, just to even have an updated report. As you say, it could be a page, but at least we've got the information in writing to refer back to.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to give more reporting to management. I've worked pretty hard to get less pages in our audit and risk committee, but what I would like, and it has come up a few times, that maybe we suggest to management that, there is a procure to pay or a contract management internal audit, because then I think we can get independent assurance, or even if it's someone that's independent within the organisation, that there's a robust process. And if the robust process is set up and it's by good design and by good operations, it gives us that level of comfort that the process is being well managed. I don't think we need to get the granular level of detail, every month on month. Do you agree with that, Calvin, or I can think of another way we could address that?
Yeah, I do agree with that approach. Maybe what might be useful is those that have some concerns around contract management to just send me an email with their concerns, to make sure that they can be addressed in how we move forward. Individual performance of contracts is really management to deal with, as opposed to a governance matter where, as Annalise has correctly pointed out, that should be reviewed, that the process that we're using and the approach we're using is being followed, as opposed to individual performance. But noting that if we did have a serious issue around a contractor, that would be brought forward through the major projects report, or through a transport update, a waters update, along those lines.
I guess, just additionally, I guess what Deborah is, I'm just sort of adding on to Deborah here, as governors, we need to be assured that the contractors and the external consultants that are costing millions of dollars, from a governance perspective, we have full faith. And as we've mentioned on a number of occasions now, there's some gaps, and what are they? Yes, so whether that needs to be quarterly or whatever it needs to be, I think that's something that gives us assurance that we could pass on. Additionally, I think, and we're going to cover the report back on mitigate cyber attacks. I would believe that would be something that's quite a continuous update as well, given that we've been assured on a number of occasions that our processes are good. However, the appointment of the new manager has shown that to be incorrect. So I guess we'll cover that off in PX, but I would think that a continued report on that would be something that would come on a regular basis.
And that's in the work program, to come in on a quarterly basis.
Thank you.
The other comment I'd make, in line with the chair's comments, we need to be mindful of operational and governance roles and responsibilities. And at operational level, we are undertaking monitoring on a very, very regular basis, including meeting with contractors. The outcome to those will feature through reports, by either financial reports or CapEx reports as well. Bear also in mind the work program that we've put forward in the risk assessment, and you might just want to think about what risks are you identifying under that as well. But just governance and operation, we need to be clear of the separation.
Yeah, any concerns around procurement, project manager, contract manager, send me an email through on those, and I'll make sure that we're making sure that's being covered off.
Thank you. I got booted out for a minute there, and I've rejoined. But other than that, if there's any other comments, I think we can move into PX. If I could have someone. Thank you, Bob and Tim Murray. Thank you. So we'll move into PX, please.
Madam Chair, can I suggest maybe a 5-minute break just to allow those who are on the public part of the meeting just to make sure that we separate out the process between the two of them. Also note, councillors, that we've